Sean here with BaseMint Comics. It's Wednesday, August 19th, new comic book day. You know what that means. Hank and I are going to hit the trails on a beautiful, sunny Wednesday afternoon to head up to our favorite comic book shop to pick up this week's books. Then we'll be back here, or I'll be back here. I mean, he'll be back here too, but he's just not going to be here. He's talkative, but not like this. To discuss what I loved about last week and what I picked up this week. So let's hit the trails.
Saturday, wearing ugly shoes. Never left in the rain, never coming back again. She left no note or blues. Why? Ask yourself why. Go on, ask yourself why. Why did you leave this way? Holiday, without her wedding news. Never flew on a plane with another to sail the rain. And I don't care with whom, no. I don't ask myself why. I don't ask myself why. Why did you leave this way?
All right, so we are back from the ride. It was a good one. Tea is made, and we are ready to get into it. That the tune that was playing, a track called Minerva of our second record. I really like, not to go off on a non-comic book related thing, but we wrote that in the attic of a house I lived in. I mean, that was 18 years ago, something like that. 17 maybe, I don't know. 2009. I'm not good at math. And we put that together during rehearsal. It was the wintertime, I remember, because there was an AMC Godfather marathon on, and that appears to only happen at Christmas time. And I recall, like, and this is going to sound incredibly egotistical, but I remember when we sort of worked that one out where I was like, that's a hit. That should have been a hit. That should have been, and that's what we refer. I know most of the songs are peppy, and that one was a slower one. We would refer to that as a tender jam. But there's that. So yeah, there's your little Sean's musical history lesson. What did I like from last week? There were some doozies. There's even one that I'm going to talk about that's probably 2 weeks old, because this channel is anything, it's topical. This issue of X-Men. I have not been... it's not like... listen, I'm not going to come on here and be like, this sucked. There's nothing really... Like, if there's something where I'm like, ugh, this is... Like, here's the worst thing that I could possibly say about any comic book that I pick up. Civil War Unmasked, Generation X, Doctor Strange, Fury of Firestorm, and this issue of Batman. I didn't read them yet. And I don't know if that's any indication. Like, I'm enjoying... Generation X and Doctor Strange are probably the two that I'm enjoying the least. Civil War, Firestorm, and Batman I've been enjoying, but I just didn't get to them this week. There was a lot going on. So that's usually like as bad as it can get for me for a comic. Is just like, oh, I didn't read it during its week of release. So if that's like an indictment of the books or whatever. But I have not, like, when it comes to the X-Men books, Jed MacKay has not been like... I had higher hopes for his book. And there have been some highlights. There have been some highlights. But this issue was the first one where, like, legitimately when I was reading it, I was like, this feels closer to the X-Men that I grew up with than recent issues of his. And so take that what you will. But I, as a DNX prologue, and me loving the Fantastic Four and loving the X-Men, I am very excited about this particular crossover. And I was nervous going into this issue because I was like, oh man, if this isn't good, it's knocking out, you know, like, FS is probably my favorite book that's being put out right now by anybody. And so I was a little bit like, oof, I hope this is good. And it was. I was pretty impressed with the first issue. Actually, I didn't get to read it again, and I was planning on reading it again. Chris Samney, Mark Waid. If there's a Batman book that I am going to buy and read, it's going to be one drawn by Chris Samney that feels like a time period piece. There's not much more that I can say about it than that, because like I've said at great length, my Batman knowledge is solely based on any episode of Batman Adventures that I saw, the Batman cartoon that I saw from the 90s when I was a kid, and my love of the Keaton movies. But beyond that, I'm a pretty blank slate. But I love Chris Samney's art style, and so I was into that. This is the book from a couple weeks ago that I didn't get to, and when I read it, I was like, holy smokes, why did I not read this? This was 100% right up my alley, and I have, like... Age of Apocalypse is one of those things that I legitimately could talk your ear off about. Like the impact that it had on me, I could get into very specific details of like what was going on in my life during that. That was during the height of my house. We've talked about this before, where the home that I grew up in, the front of it was a candy store. And so, like, I remember kind of like we had a fireplace in that house. It was Christmas time when those books first, sort of that Legion Quest story hit. And I just remember, like, my mom making the candy for the candy store. So the house, like, it smelled like candy year round, which was why I was not so into candy as a child. Give me a piece of fruit any day. Natural sugar or whatever. anyways, I just have a lot of good like childhood memories of that particular storyline. And the really interesting thing that is lost, I think, a lot on like, and this isn't like an old man soapbox where I'm like going to get on there and be like, ooh, things were better in my day. But I didn't have the internet back then. And I was I was still in the infancy of my comic book reading and collecting. And I legitimately thought that Xavier was dead. Like, I thought that was just like, holy shit, this happened. And this is just, we're just living in this, dystopia from now on. And I loved it. And I was very happy when it was done, because 4 months was a pretty long time for an event to overtake an entire line. But I loved it. It was. I still, to this day, will occasionally bust it out, read it in the order that it is meant to be read, because that story flows. Like, editorial did a kick-ass job on making everything in that book matter and everything kind of flow and tie into all the other issues. There wasn't wasted space in that event. There wasn't like a book. Like, now an event happens and there's tie-ins and you're like, oh, this is pointless. This is pointless. Okay, I need to read this. That legitimately, like, you could just read one or two of the titles and get a full story, but it really did enhance the entire thing to read the whole thing. And all of this is a very nostalgic, sing-songy, long-winded way to say that it is a well that I wish they would never go back to. And I say this knowing that I'm hypocritical in this, because I thoroughly enjoyed when Rick Remender and Uncanny X-Force did go back to that well. But it's kind of one of those events, much like the Dark Phoenix saga, where I'm just like, I just wish you'd leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Just let it be. But this was good, and I will say this, maybe it gets an asterisk in the record books, because I'm probably more excited about this than I should be, because it's Jeff Loeb writing a good book, and he was one of the architects of the original Age of Apocalypse thing. So like, that's kind of a warm blanket for me, as like, oh, if it's a Jeff Loeb story, that's not, I know there have been the occasional dip, but I also believe that was mired in personal tragedy. So I don't begrudge him any of that Ultimate Universe nonsense. And Simone DeMaio, as slow as he is as an artist, was very much giving off Joe Madriera vibes in this. So it just it tickled a nostalgia bone that I needed tickled. And the reason that I'm talking about this at length is it appears, and this is where like this drives the continuity guy in me crazy. So it appears in this that like the two Gambits at one point, like our Gambit realizes that this dude would do anything to be with his rogue, and so it's possible that they switched places, which I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense to me, because I don't understand why our Gambit would be like, sure, let me just swap places with you so I can go live in this Age of Apocalypse hellhole while you hang out with my wife. So this one deserves another read, because there is a Gambit left back, and it makes me feel like it's the Age of Apocalypse Gambit, but I'm like, that throws off a lot of books in the Marvel universe right now, if that's the case. It also appears that Sabretooth and Wildchild from the Age of Apocalypse universe have stayed back in our universe. And this is all leading into a mini-series that's coming out called Gambit Gone, which I will be picking up. But I'm just like, man, okay, tonight I got to reread this one to make sure I understood that correctly, because sometimes that can happen. It might just be me, but I seriously read that as though the Gambit switched places. And that's weird. It's just weird. Because it's not going to be addressed. I mean, maybe, but I mean, Gail Simone has her whole thing going on. Anyways, unexpected book. Miles Morales, Spider-Man #1. I have not read a Miles Morales Spider-Man book. And I thoroughly enjoy. Actually, technically the cover should look like this. I really liked this. And I I could gather from this that Miles has gone off the rails in other books. I think in the Blood Hunt book, he might have been turned into a vampire, and I think there's something about a venom sword and all sorts of cosmic stuff. But this book is solely built around him, like just being in the neighborhood, being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And I think that if it was just me in the picture, I might not have picked up this book. But young Hank watches Spidey and his amazing friends. I watch it too. Spin, Miles Morales, is obviously he's a main character on that show, along with Ghost Spider. And so he's growing up with this character being just, like, right now, to him, they're all equals. And there's no weirdness of the internet, being the internet. And so I was like, oh, I'll get this because, street level, like, that could be fun. And, like, hey, it'll be a, like, series that I have with a character that he's super familiar with. The kids are younger, it's having that thing. It's got the Genki character from the Ultimate Spider-Man run. Not 100% sure how he got here, too, but I imagine it happened during the incursions. And so, like, the cast of characters is similar. It's got a similar vibe to the Tom Holland movies. And the writing in it, I really enjoyed the fact that Miles clearly is, like, he talks like Miles. But it didn't feel, how sometimes when you read, like, writers writing, like, teen slang, and you're like, oof, they're really forcing that. This did not feel, to me, to my old ass, this did not feel forced at all. And, but I will say, this is the one, if I were to be allowed, as the hog would say, a whinge, reading this with how good I thought it was, makes me, and I understand this, I would love it if Peter was still with MJ and he was able to grow as a character, okay? But I was certainly not one of those people who, like, threw a fucking fit and have been, like, boycotting Spider-Man ever since the Mephisto thing, okay? I just didn't. Would I love for MJ and Pete to be married and have Mayday Parker as their daughter and allow our characters to grow old? Hell yes, I would. I'm growing old. I would like to see the characters evolve. But I'm not so selfish as to understand that, like, this sort of needs to be here for the next generation. But I guess my argument then becomes, like, this is really good. And this can be the next generation's younger Spider-Man. So why don't we allow Peter to grow up? That's my only, like, my only gripe about this has nothing to do with the content of this book. This book was fantastic, but it does sort of give me, like, pause where it's like, okay, this is really well done. Like, lean into it, continue, but perhaps think about, like, not making Peter Parker Tom Holland in the comics, if that makes sense. So, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. Added it to my pull list today, and I'm looking forward to the next issue. Holy smokes. Queen of Black Thor was so good. It was so good. Like, it was really, really, really good. Beta Ray Bill, Sigurd Jarlsson. The whole thing going on in Thor right now is that no one believes that Thor or Asgard existed. Sigurd Jarlsson does not believe that he was ever Thor. He's just a man. And Beta Ray Bill, in everyone's memory, has been replaced. Your copy of Avengers #1, that's not Thor on the cover. That's actually Beta Ray Bill. And this is the world that our heroes are living in. And this is what's happening in the Mortal Thor. And that book has been delightful. I think it's flying under the radar. I think there are a couple books out there right now where I hear the grumblings of, like, is Marvel failing? Is Marvel blah, 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 blah. The absolute Batman. I mean, there's actually quite a few really solid titles that are just putting out good book month after month after month, but they're just not a speculator's paradise, so they're not going to be talked about as frequently as other things on the internet. But I don't give a shit about speculation. I care about story, and this was a good one. This is one of those books where if I had an exorbitant amount of cash, I would tell you, dear watcher, that if you picked up this book and you were unimpressed with it, I would give you the money. But I got a kid. So no, I'm not going to do that. But it's a fucking great book. And it's kind of twofold. Sigurd Jarlsson is like traveling to take on the radioactive man and like working through, which happens in Mortal 4 issue number 9. And it was fantastic. Like the idea of Thor not being able to just be Thor and kind of take on some characters that normally he wouldn't and have to kind of outsmart them because he's mortal, it's just been a fun read. And we all know that I love fun. And I could not ever get enough Beta Ray Bill. And so it hops between the two, but it does this really, this is a thing that Al Ewing does really well, which is like, he sort of poses a question, in the battle with Beta Ray Bill, that is then like so Beta Ray Bill is taken on Tur, okay? Or Tur, I don't know. And he'll ask a certain question about it, like as they're whatever they're discussing during their battle, is then sort of when you cut to the Sigurd Jarlsson, he is sort of going through a similar question. So the two kind of seamlessly flow together in this. And obviously, like, Sigurd happens upon like the Queen in Black attack happening, and he is then visited by Hela, who shows up. And like Tur is basically trying to like convince like Beta Ray Bill to kind of throw in the towel and like, you know, you're not Thor, like, even though this is what's like sort of happening and what happened to your world wasn't that, you know, great. And Hela is trying to talk to Sigurd about like that he needs to accept death and sort of like not try, like, what is he going to be able to do as a mortal person against these aliens that are like draped in armor and so on and so forth. And it's just like, it is just a super compelling story between the two of them. And there is a I'm trying to find it. Hang on. So yes. So there is a point there's a point where Tyr says, you will never be anything. He's fighting Beta Ray Bill. And he says, you will never be anything more than a false Thor. And he goes, I will never be anything less than a true Beta Ray Bill. And that is enough for me. And it will be more than enough for you. And then he hammers the holy hell out of him. And the line, like, I will never be anything less than a true Beta Ray Bill, was so goddamn good. Like, if you've ever had any type of, like, self-doubt or, you know, so it was just a great moment of, like, him just sort of accepting, like, no, man, I'm good enough. Like, I am the best Beta Ray Bill out there. And then it cuts to, like, Sigurd, and he unfortunately tried to rescue this girl from the attack, and she perished. And he says, she died, smoke inhalation, I think. I tried to breathe for her, but I was no use. And Hela is, your crying is death so hard for you to bear, Sigurd. Is it such a monstrous enemy to you? And he's like, well, how can you ask me that? And she's like, answer me. Is death so hard? And he says, life, that is hard. Life is so very cruel, so very cold. If we are very lucky, we get a chance to form a dream to cling to. If we are luckier still, we may get to reach for that dream. But even with all the luck, there is some dream only of power or money or cruelty. Some dream only of making life colder, but even for them, time runs out. Luck's wheel stops spinning. The chance falls out of reach. The dream ends. So goes for us all. I am no enemy of death. You can be the end of great pain, the earned rest after long struggling. But there are times when you come too coldly, too soon. That is why we fear you, the living, not because you are cold, but because you leave life colder in your wake. And I was like, for anybody that's ever lost anybody, you absolutely understand what he's saying about death leaving your life colder in its wake. And so I was like, this book is hitting all my buttons, and it is pretty great because then it ends with like Beta Ray Bill having this huge battle where he is able to save hundreds, and then it is revealed that the young girl did live, and Sigurd, the mortal man, was able to save one human, which was worth it. And so I was like, that is a really, really great Thor book, and Al Ewing has been doing a great job on Thor. It's been really good. You're missing out. So, that was last week's books. Sorry that I just read you half of the Thor book, but damn, it was good. All right, so what did we pick up? There was this ash can thing given out at San Diego Comic-Con, it appears, and now it was in my shop, and they threw one in my pull box. It's a little black and white preview of the Midnight Universe. I have already pre-ordered the 3 titles, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and X-Men. I say it a lot, but I am not a big horror guy. So my challenge to you is, how many issues do I make before I throw in the towel? Because the Spider-Man one looks like really horror spidery, and I'm like, ugh, don't know if I'm going to make that. And then Pete's drawing really manga, and that's not necessarily my cup of tea. So my bet is that Spider-Man is the first one dropped. Fantastic Four looks a little better. I really like Kev Walker's pencils, so that's enough to kind of like get me to stick around. And then obviously it appears the main character of the Midnight X-Men story is Nightcrawler, so there is a good chance I will stick on that one out longer than all of them. But how long before I throw in the that's the question. I don't know. You get a no prize if you can guess the right number of issues before I throw in the towel. All right, so let's see. What else did I pick up? Avengers Armageddon number 3. It's got Wolverine on the cover. First 2 issues have been pretty fun. This is obviously leading into something incredibly serious with the Avengers, and I've really been digging Chip Zdarsky's run so far. I think, he's doing the book afterwards, right? With the new Avengers team. So yeah, I've been enjoying this. I'm excited to see where it was going. I was happy to see that a new issue of this series was on my list for this week. Bishop issue number 3. Loved the first 2 issues so far. This is like classic 90s Bishop to me. And there's like a couple characters from the future that are like amalgamations of characters that we've always grown up with. And I get more of Bishop's sister Shard. And I thoroughly enjoy that character from her days in X Factor as a hologram that Forge plucked out of Bishop's memory. Captain Marvel Dark Past number 5. I've really enjoyed this series. It's been a fun mini-series. There's been plenty of Rogue and the Brotherhood kind of peppered throughout this to warm my X-Men loving heart. But I also have read pretty much every Carol series. I dropped off a little bit during like the Captain Marvel time period. Like when it kept on getting rebooted. But this was a lot of fun. And I am looking forward to I believe this is the final issue of that mini. And Glorious X-Force, like I can't explain. This is just old school. Like, the team is wonky, but I friggin' love Boom Boom. And so she is in full Boom Boom mode, and this has been more fun than I thought it would be. I really dig. Tim Seeley's written some stuff. He wrote a Shatterstar miniseries a few years back that I really enjoyed. And so just he kind of has, I would wager, I don't know, this is me just guessing, but some of the stuff that he sort of calls back to is like the sweet spot of my youth. So I imagine we might be close in age, and he was influenced by the same time period that I was with the X-Men, which is probably why this hits as close to home to me as it does. Daredevil #5. I like, it sounds stupid, but the hook of Matt being a law professor really does it for me. This series, the only like knock that I would give it is it seems slower than I feel like it should be. Like when I was like, oh, we're on issue #5, I was like, I feel like we should be on like issue 10 by now. Like I don't know. I'm just really hoping that it kind of kicks off and gets going. Let's see. Queen of Black #3. I've been obviously from that Thor, and picked up Defenders Light and Dark #2. I have been enjoying the like side series of this more than I've been enjoying the main series. The main series legitimately just sort of feels right now like it is facilitating the far superior tie-ins. And that's okay, but you know, when it's got a, everything's $4.99 these days. Yeah, I just, you know, we've talked about it. My love of the symbiotes is not high, so you know. But I like Hela and I like Thor, so I thought this would be a little bit more Thor orientated and a little less like Eddie Brock's kid. Spider-Man and Hulk, Fire and Brimstone, written by Kevin Smith, and looks like he has a writer with him. So I'm assuming that'll probably get it to come out a little bit, like hopefully on time. That was one of the things when I signed up for this. I was like, ugh, do I really? Because I love Kevin Smith. You know, I was opening night of Mallrats. It's my birthday. My pals played the premiere party. I think I've mentioned that before, I'm sure. But I saw the opening night. It was my birthday, and I went with my mom, and it was uncomfortable. I'd never seen Clerks. I hadn't seen Clerks yet at that point. There were just a shit ton of Mallrats ads in Marvel Comics, and the soundtrack came out first, and it had Sponge on it, you know, and so they're my favorite band. Bush, all sorts of bands that I loved from my youth. So of course I was going to be there opening night, and then there was a 15-minute topless fortune-telling scene where I had a squirm sitting next to my mother. But anyways, he will probably write a funny Spider-Man and Hulk story. So, and plus it's drawn by R.B. Silva, and he has been one of my favorites of the last decade. Spectacular Spider-Man Brand New Day. I was hard on the first 2 issues of this, but #3, when I was reading it, I was like, damn, this is like it. I know this will ruffle. I did not hate the Brand New Day thing in Spider-Man. Was I happy that Pete and MJ were no longer together? Of course. But like, the crew that was writing this really told some fun, good stories. The book was coming out pretty frequently. It didn't slow down. And it was a good time. And so I like, Marcus Toe doing the art? Yeah. I like his art. I like Dan Slott as the writer. This was announced today that it is going to be an ongoing. That concerns me. I enjoyed it as a mini. Obviously, I am signed up for it, so I will probably continue getting it past the mini. I quickly glanced at an article where Dan Slott made a comment about how like Spectacular Spider-Man back in the day was where, you know, some oddball villains were introduced, where things happened with like side character, like it was more of the side character book, which like as I'm reading Spectacular Spider-Man in Cornerbox Classics, I can 100% see where he's coming from. I think my issue stems from like Slott just keeps on coming back to Spider-Man, and to me this sort of feels like I don't know, it just makes me feel like there's not, I think Joe Kelly's right, he's doing a good run on Amazing. It's been interesting, I've been enjoying it, but the constant like, oh, let's go back to Dan Slott sort of makes me feel like is it just me, or does it seem like maybe like constantly going back to him, like maybe they're not trusting that anybody else could do it? Does that make sense? And it's like, again, it's like I really like Dan Slott's writing. Like I loved his Spider-Man, really enjoyed his Fantastic Four, loved his She-Hulk. You know, I even gave his Superman try, but that, much like Midnight, it never lasts. I can dip my toes into the DC pool, but as you can see, me still not having read that last issue of Batman, I lose interest in DC pretty quickly. I am going to watch Lanterns tonight. I'm excited about that. I enjoyed this, but like it becoming, because the other thing with it becoming an ongoing is like, is it an ongoing that's going to happen in present day? Because it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it's going to be happening during like Slott's original run. And it's like, sure, if anybody were to write that, it should be him because he has a better understanding of it than any other writer would. But it just feels like an ongoing is a bit tough to try to like not fuck up continuity. That's all. Punisher vs. Spider-Man #2. This was the long shot. The week that came out, I was fully expecting this to be a movie tie-in, you know, which, I mean, great. Spider-Man Brand New Day was fantastic. The movie was great. But I don't like, you know, I want my movies separate from my comics. And I was worried that this was going to be like a movie tie-in thing, and it's not. It was just an absolute blast of a comic book. It was really funny. And Dan Abnett nailed it, and so I am thoroughly excited to read issue #2. Uncanny X-Men, number 734. This is dealing with Gambit being a weird zombie winged dude. I enjoyed the last arc. I hope that we can get through this weirdness with Gambit and just have Gambit go back to normal. Or is this the Age of Apocalypse Gambit? I don't know. Do they? And then the Mortal Thor number 800. I talked enough about this book with the Queen in Black Thor, but this title has been a lot of fun. Pasquale Ferry, I mean, he was like born to draw a Thor book. Number 800. They got me with the price. I mean, I was willing to pay it. That book has been a delight. So yeah, books that I liked from last week and the week before that, because summertime, you know, we're in the waning weeks of summer here. What is it? It's August 19th, so we got 1 month left. I do love the fall though. I love it. It's great up here. But I am excited to dive into some of these comics tonight. Give the first episode of Lanterns a shot. I like Kyle Chandler a lot. So, you know, he's pretty much the big draw for me for that. I've seen really positive things about it online, and then I saw a few of the typical characters out there that like to take a huge dump on pretty much anything that anybody else is enjoying and then call you a shill for enjoying it, which is just delightful. You gotta love that rage bait. Anyways, Corner Box Classics hopefully this weekend. And yeah, just I hope everybody had a good Wednesday at their local comic book shop. I hope the conversation around the corner counter was great, and I hope the books that you picked up are delightful. I hope you enjoy them as much as I enjoyed that Queen in Black Thor. And if you find yourself at the comic book shop after watching this, please grab a copy of that issue because it was fantastic. So there's that. I will see you in a couple days with the Corner Box Classics. Thanks for taking this ride with us. Bye.